So the recent IELTS writing task 2 question that we are going to discuss was asked on 2nd of September 2023 this year. And the question is, some people think that the government should spend money on building subway and train lines to ease traffic congestion. Others believe that building more and wider roads is the best way to reduce traffic congestion. So there are two sides in this argument. And then the question says, discuss both points of view and give an opinion. So see, here we are supposed to discuss both the sides. So what are the sides? There is one side who says that, okay, we should build subways and trains. That will help with the traffic congestion. But the other side thinks, no, we should build wider roads, and that is a better way or the best way to reduce traffic congestion. So the problem that we are here discussing is traffic congestion, and there are two segments, kind of people. One segment thinks that we should build trains, and the other segment thinks we should build wider roads. So before I dive into the question and the steps to deconstruct it, it is important for you to understand the statement. That is why the step 1 of deconstructing this question or writing down this question is understand the given statement. So when I say understand the given statement, it's not just that you read it once and whatever you think you start writing. You read it again and again. You read it at least 5 times and make sure you understand the crux of this question. Because one of the major key assessment criteria in IELTS is task response. Task response means the relevance to the question. And how can you make sure that you're relevant to the question? By rereading it and making sure you understand and you're not missing anything from the question. You cannot digress to the trajectories of the ideas. You cannot digress to some other problem that is related to this question, but not exactly relevant. That would make you lose marks in your IELTS exam. So step 1, understand the given statement. Step 2, understand the instruction. So what is the instruction here? Discuss both point of views and give your opinion. So if the question only had been give your opinion, we were supposed to only give our opinions. But now the question also asks her, discuss both point of views. So this is how the instruction can completely change your approach to the question. So here, what will we do? We will discuss both the sides. Since we are supposed to do that, and we'll be doing that neutrally. We'll not be favoring any side. Neutrally discussing both the sides, and then we will give our opinion. And depending on what kind of opinion you have, so you could have two kinds of opinion. You could have a completely one-sided opinion that you might think, okay, trains are a better way to ease traffic congestion. Or you could be having opinion that wider roads are better. That's a one-sided opinion. But when I talk about balanced opinion, that is opinion when you say, yeah, but both of these could be used to for reducing the traffic congestion. So that is when you have a balanced opinion. So these are the two kinds of opinions, one-sided opinion, balanced opinion. Both of these demand a different approach to the essay. We'll be discussing that in just the next slide, but let's move on to the step 3. The step 3 is generate content. I always advise my students to write down their points before they start writing the essay. This makes sure that you know what you're writing about and you follow a proper track and do not get lost while writing down your points. Because a lot of the time students might forget their points or also get little digressed. They might move on to the trajectory ideas. So to make sure that you're relevant to the task and you manage your time better, it is always advised to generate content and write down your points on a piece of paper or wherever you have a piece that way you think you can write it down and jot it down so that you don't forget them or become irrelevant while you're writing the essay. So these are the 3 steps that you'll be following. Now take a minute and think about what content or what points will you add for this particular essay. And then also think about what your opinion is. Like if you think that subways should be built, why would that help in reducing traffic congestion? But if you think wider roads would be more helpful, why is that true? And then move on. What is your opinion on this matter? Take about 10 to 20 seconds. Think about it. What would you write? And then we will move on to the sample essay that we have written for you. Because it is also important for you to understand the question statements and create your own contents and then align it to the sample question that we write for you, that am I on the right track? All right. So now coming to the structure of essay. So this is what I talked about in the previous slide, having two kinds of opinions, one-sided or balanced. So when I talk about one-sided opinion, I'll just write it down here. One-sided opinion. What does that mean? That you side with one side. In this particular essay, for this instruction, we will have the introduction as usual. Then we will move on to body paragraph 1. Let's say you're siding with building trains, that is view 1. So you have body paragraph 1, that is trains are better to reduce traffic congestion. Now you also think this is true, so you will add your opinion in this body paragraph only. And after explaining your point, your argument, you will add your opinion here. Next, we'll move on to body paragraph 2. Here, we'll be talking about wider roads. Wider roads, and then we will have the conclusion. So this would be a structure for a one-sided body paragraph, one-sided opinion. Now, what would be the structure for a balanced opinion? Let's have a quick look. So when you have a balanced opinion, the structure looks like you'll start with the introduction as usual, then move on to the body paragraph. Body paragraph 2, where we'll be talking about, similarly, we'll be talking about wider roads. I'll just add all of this. And then we have a separate body paragraph, body paragraph 3, where we will write our balanced opinion. So this is only in the case of a balanced opinion, when you think that both of them are a viable option. So this is how you write a one-sided essay and the balanced opinion. For this particular webinar, we have chosen a balanced opinion. So you can see how to create 3 body paragraphs apart from introduction and conclusion. So let's begin. Introduction. So introduction has 3 major parts. Our introduction starts with your paraphrasing. Paraphrasing is whatever statement is given to you, you write down it in your own words. Then you can may or may not introduce the points that you're going to talk about, briefly discuss them, and last but not least, the thesis statement. So what is a thesis statement? Thesis statement is nothing but whatever the instruction was given to you, the answer to that is your thesis statement. So here goes the structure for the introduction. We start with yes. So we start with paraphrased. Then we move on to points, which you may introduce briefly. You don't have to explain them in the introduction. You can just briefly point to the ideas that you're going to discuss. And last but not the least, thesis statement. Thesis statement is your answer to the instruction. So what was the instruction here? Your opinion. Discuss both sides. Once you've done with that, you give your opinion. So your opinion could be, I believe this is either could be one-sided or it could be a balanced opinion. So let's see. So for this question, we have started with a background statement, which is again an optional statement. You may or may not include it, but we have chosen to include it in this particular essay. So gridlock is a serious problem that cities face today because of rapid growth and urbanization. So gridlock is basically traffic congestion. It's a synonym for traffic congestion, and it is a serious problem being faced by a lot of the cities. Hence, there is an ongoing debate as to whether the government should allocate its budget towards enhancing railway networks and subways, or whether the funds should be invested in expanding roadways. So this is the paraphrase statement. So whatever the question was, I've written the same thing, but in my own words. For example, instead of writing should spend money, we wrote allocate its budget. So that's how you can use synonyms. Change the structure of the sentence. Instead of going with 2 sentences, I've made it into a complex 1 sentence, enhancing, or whether the funds should be invested in expanding roadways. So this is how you can paraphrase your statement. There are multiple parts of speech that you can change, and then also use your, instead of synonyms, you can also change the parts of speech. Last but not the least, thesis statement. I contend that state funds should be allocated towards all possible solutions to address this gargantuan issue of traffic jams. So this is my opinion. When I say I contend, that means I believe. My opinion is that state funds should be allocated towards all possible solutions. That means everything that we can do. What does that mean? Also create trains and subways, but also make wider roads. So all of this concludes that I have a balanced opinion here. So let's move on to our body paragraph 1. So body paragraph 1, on the one hand, this is a link that I've used to start my body paragraph. On the one hand, considering the limitations on land available to expand the existing roadways, governments undoubtedly have to look at alternatives like trains and subways to ease the issue of traffic jams prevalent in urban cities. So I'm talking about that land is very limited. That is where trains and subways will ease traffic jams. Trains and subterranean rapid transit system, that is your subways, are faster and run on a fixed schedule, which makes it suitable for masses to commute to their workplaces. For instance, another linker, most inhabitants in urban metropolitan cities like London, New York, and Mumbai prefer the metro or railway for their daily travel. So this is your body paragraph. Now, what is the structure of this body paragraph? If you can pinpoint, what are the things, 3 important things that you can see here? Like in the 3 lines, how can you identify what are the 3 important structures of body paragraph that we have used here? So the things that we have written here is a topic sentence. A topic sentence is basically an opening sentence that what I'm going to talk about in this particular paragraph. So my opening sentence tells me that we're going to talk about why trains and subways are important. And then I've also given a hint to the limitation of land available. Then we are talking about supporting statement. So what is a supporting statement? A supporting statement is when you give your idea, when you give your argument, you also have to support it with some evidence or some sort of more elaboration, right? So I'm elaborating that trains are faster. That means more people can travel and they run on a fixed schedule, which makes it more comfortable for workplaces because a lot of times you might get stuck in traffic, but here in this case, the most more or less run on a fixed schedule. And last but not the least, we have an example. Now, this is also very important. Once you've given your supporting statement, you also have to back it up with an example. So an example is basically a foolproof method to just wrap your entire argument and say, give a full-fledged argument that this is complete. No, I have given a topic sentence, you have given a supporting statement and an example, and you have developed it sufficiently for the examiner to be convinced. Now the examiner is convinced, all right, I believe this person because this person has given me, this person has developed their argument beautifully by giving a supporting statement and an example also to back it up. So all these 3 things are very, very important in your body paragraph. Let's move on to the second body paragraph. So similarly, we will follow the same structure that we did in the previous body paragraph, topic sentence, supporting statement, and example. Let's see. However, government should make the most of the existing roadways as well to ease traffic congestion. They should consider widening the existing national highways and local roads because the money already spent on building this network should not go in waste. Secondly, roadways are needed to move to places not accessible by rail or the metro. Further, improving this existing roadways might be enough to meet the needs of smaller towns and rural areas. So this is where you give your idea and then you build it sufficiently. So first we talk about that how existing roadways should be made wider because we have already spent money here, right? So you can just go ahead and expand them and save a significant amount of your investment. And secondly, roadways are always need to move to places not accessible by rail and metro. So this is another advantage that it has over the traffic congestion. So this is where you are discussing the other side of the argument. Let's move on to the third body paragraph. So next we have opinion. So in my opinion, traffic congestion is a critical issue most governments are facing, and all possible options, including railways, subways, and roadways should be considered as possible solutions depending on specific needs. So this was your opinion and the third body paragraph that you give your opinion in a separate body paragraph and you're telling them that my opinion is we should deploy all the possible methods that we can to improve the problem of traffic congestion. Last but not the least, the conclusion. So before I move into the conclusion, there are a few things that you have to keep in mind for the conclusion. So for a conclusion, what is a conclusion? A conclusion is nothing but a paraphrased version of your thesis statement. What does that mean? That whatever you had written in your thesis statement, you can just paraphrase it for your conclusion. And in your conclusion, no new arguments have to be introduced. You cannot point out any new ideas or even new examples that are related to your points in your conclusion. The conclusion is supposed to wrap up your argument and do nothing else. So when you're writing down your conclusion, make sure that you do not introduce at any cost any new argument, or you'll be marked negatively for that. Only the arguments that have been sufficiently developed and you've talked about in your previous body paragraphs, you can paraphrase them and wrap them up in your conclusion. Let's see. To conclude, now that is a linker that you can use, a well-integrated transportation system that includes subways, trains, and expanded road networks can provide the flexibility and options needed to cater to a wide range of transportation needs and address this issue of traffic congestion. So basically, what was our thesis statement? That all of these all-rounded systems should be created for this. That is what we have written in our conclusion, that a well-integrated transportation system that includes subways, trains, and expanded route networks can provide the flexibility as well option needed to cater to a wide range of transportation. So flexibility is given by both by a well-integrated transportation system. So this is how you can conclude your entire essay, wherein you wrap up all the arguments that you have talked about and give a concluding statement to the examiner. All right. So here's the final essay that we have written here. For body paragraph 2 here, you can also add an example here if you feel like so, or sometimes students choose to go for extra points that support their arguments. Either way, it is fine, but make sure if you want to give an example, it is specific. And if in case you cannot think of an example, you can make it a generic, a personalized example from your own experience. But moving on to the entire essay, so see there we have the introduction, we have the body paragraph 1, body paragraph 2, the opinion paragraph because it was a balanced opinion, and the conclusion. So this makes a well-rounded final essay. Now, since we're done with the structure of the essay, let's have a close look upon the criteria, the assessment criteria. So there are 4 assessment criteria that you need to focus upon. So what are those? There is number 1, task response, that is your TR. And we have coherence and cohesion, lexical resource, and grammatical range and accuracy. When I talk about task response, what is task response? Task response is nothing but the relevance to your essay, that one we talked about in the very beginning. So you have to make sure while writing down your essay that your points are exactly relevant and in conjunction to the point that is given to you. You cannot divert off to some trajectory points that you think might be relevant or are relevant to the idea that you gave, right? For example, when we talk about rapid transit system, a faster and done on a flexible schedule, that is very relevant to the idea of what we are talking about, that this is how it is going to be suitable for masses, and hence more people will commute to their workplaces using these systems, thus relieving the problem of traffic congestion. So you need to make sure that whatever idea that you're writing is exactly relevant and stitched to the idea of the question. That even when I'm talking about faster, more efficient and fixed schedule and people can commute to workplaces, I still stitch it to the main argument of easing the traffic congestion. That is why I was reiterating again and again in the beginning that it's very important for you to reread the question as many times as possible. Then we talk about coherence and cohesion. So your CEC is coherence and cohesion. So what is coherence and cohesion? So coherence and cohesion is your flow of ideas, seamless transition between ideas. That when I'm moving from one paragraph to another, I am moving seamlessly and the ideas are linking to each other. So when talking about coherence and cohesion, you can use linkers to make this happen. So what are linkers? Linkers are the words that you put in between sentences to link the idea from the one sentence to the other sentence. For example, on the one hand, however, for instance, then we have further, secondly, in my opinion, to conclude. So these are all the examples of linkers. You can also use other linkers like to illustrate, for example, on the other hand, on the flip side, contrary, meanwhile, hence, all of these words act as a linker and they have different purposes. So when you have to present some contrasting ideas, for example, here we were talking about contrasting ideas, then you can use however, or you can use on the contrary. You can also use contrastingly, on the other side, on the flip side. All of these linkers give us the idea of the contradiction that we are going to talk about. Then we can use furthermore, in addition to this, also, all of these linkers give us the idea of addition to the point, that we are adding something to what we have already talked about. For instance, when you're giving example, you can also use for example, to illustrate. Then we have other linkers that we can use to conclude, in conclusion, I contend, in my opinion. See, other alternatives in my opinion could be in my perspective, as per my view, in my opinion, in my perspective. All of these are the linkers that you can use to state your opinion. So these are the linkers that you can use. Coming to the next point is lexical resource. Now, what is lexical resource? Lexical resource is nothing but a fancy way of saying your vocabulary. So lexical resource means that you have to use uh, good vocabulary words in your essay. They don't have to be sufficiently very fancy, but make sure that the word that you're using, you know the correct meaning and usage of it. Because a lot of the time, students make this mistake of learning new words, but then don't know how to use them correctly, which will act as counterproductive, because then you will be marked in a negative way, that you will be marked for your memorized words. There's a section in your IELTS exam where it is written memorized words, where you are marked negatively for the words that you have misused. Then we have words like, so in this particular essay, we have used word like gargantuan, like on a big scale. Metropolitan, that means urban cities. That's a synonym for metropolitan when we talk about, some place with diverse cultures and a lot fast. Then we have, all right, some other words that we can see here is urbanization, allocate funds instead of saying spending money, right? Traffic. Then we have contrition. Yes. All right. So these are all the words that you can use. Then subterranean rapid transit system. That is also another way to say subway. So these are all the words that you can use. And make sure that when you're writing your essay, you find out some synonyms for the words that are given to you. Instead of repeating the words again and again, write down the synonyms. So these all constitute and make a good lexical, give you a good lexical score. Last but not the least, we're going to talk about the grammatical range and accuracy. Let me just quickly type it down. So when I talk about grammatical range and accuracy, grammatical range is, let's talk about the grammatical accuracy first. So grammatical accuracy constitutes if your tenses are correct, if your subject-verb agreement is correct, your punctuation is correct. Yes, punctuation is also very important in your IELTS essay. So make sure that your commas, your full stops are placed at the correct place. And when we talk about grammatical range, we're talking about the range of sentences that you can use in your essay, which include multitudes of essays, for example, complex sentences, compound sentences. So when I use hence, there's an ongoing debate. Should allocate budget towards networks and subways, or whether the fund should be invested in expanding roadways. So this is a complex sentence because one part of the sentence is dependent on the other to make it complete. Then we have one sentence here. On the one hand, considering the limitations of land available to expand the existing roadways, see, this is a dependent sentence, dependent clause. What do I mean by dependent clause? That this clause is not full in its meaning, right? If I leave it alone, if I remove it from the rest parts of the sentences, it will not make complete sense. That is a dependent clause. And when we join dependent clause with independent clauses, that's when we make a complex sentence. Governments undoubtedly have to look at alternatives like trains and the subway to ease the issue of traffic jams prevalent in urban cities. All right. Then we have, then you can also use passive statements at places. You can use certain conditional statements if you wish, whether or using if this happens, then we can achieve this sentence. All of these sentences show your range or your hold over English language. So you can use all of these tools or strategies to make sure that you ex- enhance your IELTS score. But when we talk about grammatical range, remember it is very important for you to incorporate at least one complex sentence in each body paragraph in your essay. All right. So that is all for today. For more such interactive IELTS sessions and content, please follow us on LinkedIn and subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you want to get access to IELTS resources, tips and strategies, and more such videos, please visit our website, www.yunolearning.com, or you can also give us a call at this. And don't forget to press that bell icon so that you don't miss out on any other free webinars that we are conducting for you. Thank you so much.